Hello and welcome to ModB.com's Stanisaus Football Weekly, an inside look at all things football in the Modesto area. And now for your hosts, Joe Cortez and Brian VanderBeek.
Hi everybody and welcome to Stanisaus Football Weekly. For the first week of the playoffs, we are done with the regular season. 26 of our, about half the team, 26 teams in the playoffs. It's roughly half of the teams in the Stanislaus district are moving on. And we're going to go division by division with the favorites and the locals and how we think all this is going to pan out, especially in the first week or two. Let's start right away. Oh, by the way, I'm Brian VanderBeek. This is Ron Agostini. Joe Cortez is down at the end. And it's been our pleasure to bring high school football to you all season long, and it
sure has.
Just getting wound up now. Division 1, the top seed, mighty Folsom. And we might have a couple teams with a chance to deal with them down the road. We've got 5 Stanislaus district teams in the field: Merced, Pittman, Modesto, and Beyer. Merced hosts Jesuit. Pittman at Franklin. That game's going to be played at Sheldon High. Pleasant Grove at Modesto. That game's going to be at Downey High. And Beyer gets in as the number 15 seed, and they are at Stagg. Straight off the top, I'm looking at Merced getting a pretty good draw out of this. Not only do they have a winnable game against Jesuit at home, but then they get the Tracy Edison winner after that. So as far as a 5 seed moving along, I think that's a pretty good shot for them.
Yeah. Jesuit's a tough team, though. They play in a tough conference, and it's certainly winnable, but it's no piece of cake. Jesuit is a very tough program.
Well, I hope we don't have any pieces of cake when we get into Division 1. And, you know, Modesto is a number 10 seed. They kind of flipped the rules there, and actually they get a home game because they're Modesto Metro Conference champion.
They tweaked the rule, didn't they, Brian?
They maintain, they won't call it tweaking a rule because they maintain the right to do this.
And they want to give league champions a home game as often as they can.
Yeah. But it is odd that the higher seeded team is on the road for this game.
Yeah, and the winner of that Pleasant Grove Modesto game is probably going to get Stagg in the second round.
Pleasant Grove was undefeated until 2 weeks ago, and they faced 2 really quality opponents. They dropped out of the state rankings, but just until going into last week, they were ranked 16th in the state. So
very tough.
Very tough draw for Modesto.
Modesto High has never won a playoff game. They're 0-4.
Wow.
And so they have a chance to make a little history this week with a win at home.
You know, I said Stagg probably advances second round. Obviously, Stagg gets Beyer. Now, I was at the Beyer-Downey game last Friday night, and it was very emotional for Beyer after that game. Not only did they get blown out by Downey in a running clock game for that MMC co-championship, but Bill Flesher made sure his team knew going into that game that had they lost that game, which they did, their playoff there was a chance they wouldn't go to the playoffs, that their season would be over. So as the players gathered around after that game, they thought their season was done. They were all the tears that come with the last time this brotherhood is going to be together, the chance they wouldn't play together. I'm wondering about the emotional toll that takes of leaving it on the field like that, and then coming back, hearing the news on Saturday that, hey, we're in the playoffs.
And you face Stagg.
And then you face Stagg. I just wonder emotionally how difficult it will be for Beyer to get ready for that game.
Stagg has really come on out of the SJAA.
Yes.
They've won 9 in a row, and the only team to beat them this year? Modesto High.
Modesto High.
Absolutely.
That is right.
Well, let's move on to Division 2, where the top seed is 8-2 Del Oro, and it tells you how tough that division is up and down when your top seed is 8-2. No unbeaten teams in Division 2, but we do have 2 Stanislaus district teams down the ladder a little bit. Downey, the MMC co-champion for the second straight year.
First time that's happened in 27 years. Yeah. Back-to-back league titles for Downey. Big deal.
Good for them. Absolutely. They put on a show the other night against Beyer. And down to the 14 seed, Atwater from the Central California Conference gets in. Downey will visit Grant. Ooh, there's a tough draw, historically and actually. And Atwater will visit Elk Grove.
Downey comes in with a little momentum with their big win over Beyer. But they've had, as we've noted during the season, they've had some uncertainty at quarterback, but there's no more uncertainty now. P.J. Wilson completed 17 of 19 passes against Beyer for 300 yards. That is not bad. Only 2 incompletions. Right. Only 2 times the ball hit the ground. Very impressive. And they may have a shot in that game. Who knows? But that was a great job by Downey late in the season to kind of solidify that spread offense of theirs.
Not only did he have put up those great numbers, but it was every kind of pass. Obviously, it was the 2-step, 3-step drop, quick slant. It was the out patterns. It was the pump and go. He threw just a very good variety of passes to get that 17 of 19, opening it up a little bit. Now, Downey's offense, the spread, is very successful in MMC against teams that are used to seeing it now for 4 or 5 years since Jeremy's been there. It's kind of, if you're Grant, you just have to be a little bit wary of facing this kind of offense. Granted, Grant's going to have the athletes to be able to do it, but it is quite an adjustment, almost the same kind of adjustment you make if you're playing a wing T team for the first time,
right?
Because they're going to throw it all over the field. On the other hand, I'm guessing Grant coach Mike Alberghini may have seen this kind of offense once or twice before.
My guess is yes.
My guess is yes.
No guess about it.
It's going to be tough for. It will be tough. Downey's going to put up a fight. They will move the ball through the air. It's going to be tough for them to come out with a win.
Atwater's got a tough draw with Elk Grove.
Yes.
That was very.
Go on.
That was tough. No.
No, I was going to add that before we leave the Downey, to give you an idea of what's going on at Downey High with their back-to-back titles, the Downey freshmen also went unbeaten this year.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Paw is building something very nice there at Downey.
Good for Downey.
Hey, do you guys remember the last time Atwater and Elk Grove faced in the playoffs?
Oh, was it Elk Grove put up like 80 points or something?
77-22.
That's right.
It was when Atwater went to 3 straight section finals. I don't remember. I think it was the '99 section final.
Yeah.
77-22, and a kid by the name of Lance Briggs. Ever heard of him?
Yeah, sure.
Rushed for 300 yards in that game. Let's hope we can turn it around a little bit this time.
Yeah, let's move on to Division III, where the top seed is American Canyon. We've got several Stanislaus District teams in there. Manteca at number 2, Patterson at number 4, Pacheco at number 9, Oakdale at 13, and Central Valley gets in at number 15. Now, we were talking the last 5 weeks of the season, what it would take for Central Valley to get in and for Jaquan Gardner to get that last game, and good for the Hawks to get that playoff berth. This week, Central Valley visits Manteca. A tough draw. Manteca awfully tough on the
Well,
ground.
they played week 1, not week 0. They played week 0, and Manteca beat them 47-20.
Yeah.
Central Valley's done a lot of growing up
Yes.
since then with a mostly junior offensive line, but you got to think Manteca's a little sharper as well.
I think so. We also have Oakdale at Patterson, and just an intriguing first round.
That's a
round.
fascinating game.
Yes.
I'm happy. I'm going to be at that one, and Oakdale, has done a lot of growing, and Patterson, they're solid. I mean, you were there. They gave Central Catholic all they could handle.
That was a very competitive game, Brian, and I've seen both teams. Patterson has a shot at this, and maybe most casual fans may not realize that with all the success Oakdale's had getting to the state final last year. But Patterson was 9-0 for the first time in school history going into the game last week against Central Catholic. That's actually, Nick Marchi told me something I did not know. This was the first time in school history Patterson was 8-0 and then 9-0. So this was a big deal for Patterson. They showed up for that Central Catholic game. Fans wearing all black, packed the visitors' grandstand. They were there in force for that game. And they led Central Catholic 13-3 at half. Central had to work very hard to win that game. I expect Oakdale-Patterson to be pretty close.
When Patterson holds on to the ball, it doesn't commit turnovers, doesn't make mistakes, they're as good as pretty much anybody we have.
Yes.
I saw them early against Escalon, a game they won in double overtime, and they turned the ball over. I think they had like 17 penalties that night.
Oof.
So I assume they've cleaned up most of that during the season, and they would be tough.
They were heavily penalized the night against Central Catholic, and it did hurt them.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to clean up the penalties, I think, to be competitive against Oakdale.
The other Division III game we have there is Pacheco at Christian Brothers.
What a baptism of fire, though. Another traditional program
Absolutely.
out of the Sacramento area.
Absolutely. Well, we could spend all day talking about Division IV, as we can every year. No fewer than nine of the 16 teams in Division IV are from the Stanislaus District, including Central Catholic at 1, Hillmar at 2, Ripon at 4, Calaveras at 5, Amador at 7, Sierra, talk about intriguing, Sierra at 9, Escalon 10, Modesto Christian at 11, and Houston at number 12. Central Catholic opens up at home against Marysville. Liberty Ranch visits Hillmar. Dixon visits Ripon. Houston goes up to face Calaveras. Escalon at Amador. Sierra at Colfax. Modesto Christian at Center. 9 teams. The surprise here, and it's really only a cosmetic surprise because it doesn't mean anything. Central Catholic bumped over Hillmar for that number 1 spot. Hillmar at 10-0. Central Catholic at 9-1. On paper, you think Hillmar gets that number 1 by virtue of being undefeated, but The reality is the only difference between number 1 and number 2 is the side of the field and the color of the uniform you'd wear in a section championship game.
In the final.
In the final, that's all.
In the final, yeah. But if you look at the bracket, I think the Central Catholic's half of the bracket is a little tougher.
I think so too.
Than the bottom half. And I talked to Frank Marcus the other day, the Hillmar coach, and I talked to Roger Canepa, the Central Catholic coach, and both said all the right things. They said, hey, it doesn't matter. You got to beat everybody at some point. But I could just tell by the tone of voice that I think neither were real pleased with the way it worked out.
We're looking at a Hillmar-Escalon rematch, right? Potentially?
Potentially in the second round, right.
Yes.
Well, another second round game, if Sierra beats Colfax,
Central Catholic.
Central Catholic Sierra in the second round. And
That's
first of all, that kind of came out of nowhere as they juggled the numbers. Sierra dropping down to Division 4. We knew they were a bubble team, but the projections I saw, most of the projections had them staying in Division 3. But Sierra dropping down to Division 4, and then a 9 seed. I think.
And then a 9 seed.
Colfax can't be happy.
Sierra is a school with about 1,400 students. Mm-hmm. Central Catholic has just under 400.
Right.
It's a huge discrepancy.
It is. It is.
But you see that a lot, though, in the public versus private.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Let's move on to Division 5, where the top seed is unbeaten LeGrand, going for their 43rd straight section title. No, not quite that many.
Going for their fourth straight.
They just absolutely, Bulldogs have been dominant there.
They've been to 5 straight finals.
We've got LeGrand at number 1. Yeah, LeGrand at number 1 in Division 5. Mariposa at number 2. Waterford at number 5. And Delhi at 6. LeGrand and Mariposa as the top 2 teams in this 6-team bracket will get first-round byes. So we have Waterford at Rio Vista with that winner getting LeGrand, and Delhi at Golden Sierra with that winner getting to go up to Mariposa. Now I looked at that, Golden Sierra to Mariposa. It's about 3 hours and 20 minutes if you take 49 all the way, and it's about 3 hours and 23 minutes if you take 99, and the 99 route is 60 miles longer. So there's no easy way to get from point A to point B, but we'll deal with that next week.
We could have a LeGrand-Waterford matchup in that second round.
Yeah.
LeGrand has already beat Waterford this year convincingly in a Southern League matchup.
You just don't think there's not even a speed bump here for LeGrand.
I don't see it.
As they go
I don't see it.
through.
They beat the other bye team, Mariposa, convincingly.
Now there's one thing that's noteworthy for me is that Mariposa gets the number 2 seed in Division 5 after being the Southern League's number 3 team. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Division 6 later, but Ripon Christian gets the number 3 seed in Division 6 as the Southern League's number 2 seed. So it's just interesting to me. And there's also still chatter regarding LeGrand, still chatter on the internet about Central Catholic getting moved to the NorCal Division 3 should it win the section. Everybody I talked to at the section says that's just not going to happen. But there's still all this chatter. But should that happen to come to fruition, as some of the internet people think it will, that would give the chance to have LeGrand and McClymonds meet for in the D4 title game for the right to go down to Carson for the bowl game. Frankly, I don't see it happening. I just see Central Catholic staying in division in the small schools division once we get to the NorCal level. Moving on to Division 6, the smallest of our divisions, with Bradshaw Christian as the number 1 seed. We've got 2 Stanislaus District teams, Ripon Christian at number 3 and Stone Ridge Christian at number 6. And they meet in the first week. Stone Ridge Christian at Ripon Christian. That game is going to be played at Modesto Christian Friday night at 7 o'clock. The winner gets Woodland Christian. And this is actually a pretty good deal for Ripon Christian, because as the number 3 seed, that means they won't have to face Bradshaw until the title game, which really does pave the way for Ripon Christian to play 3 playoff games.
Okay. A little shout out here, Brian, for Big Valley Christian.
Yeah.
They lost last week, so they were eliminated from the bracket. But we have to shout out Big Valley Christian. They won 4 out of 5.
Right.
Preceding last week after their coach Larry Schimmel passed away. So they had a very, very traumatic, tough season, and they toughed through it pretty well. So all the best to Big Valley.
Absolutely. They went into that game against Stone Ridge with both teams, Stone Ridge and Big Valley, ended up at 5-5. At Stone Ridge, by virtue of its Week 10 victory over Big Valley, got that playoff berth into Division 6.
Big Valley had trouble they had trouble personnel-wise just getting their team. They were down to 20 players max, I think. I think they had a soccer player on the field there last week just to get through. So that was a pretty rough season, but they got through it as good as can be expected for sure.
And you wonder about some of these teams that with anywhere from like 17 to 22 or 23 kids. You know, we had 8-man football in this area for a lot of years, and you start to wonder whether it wouldn't behoove some of these Division VI teams to go back to some 8-man football.
That's an interesting.
It was you not only let the players play, even the field for those guys, but it saved some bodies.
Yeah,
you know, just
I can remember Modesto Christian winning a state
title.
33 years ago, I think.
It's been a long time. Yeah, 1980.
Yeah.
1980. So final points for this Stanisaus Football Weekly playoff edition. Joe?
Well, I got a few of them. They're quick hitters.
Okay.
Kenny Smart, the Central Catholic kicker, is 18 points. We believe.
Yeah.
We believe. Mark Tennis at Cal High Sports is doing some research. 18 points off the state record for all-time career scoring. Speaking of all-time records, our Jaquan Gardner and Andrew Brown update. They're both within shouting distance of the all-time single-season record held by Homer Garza of Houston High.
That's the district record, yeah.
The district record. Gardner needs 106 yards, and Andrew Brown of Ripon Christian needs only 40.
Oh.
And then you touched on it before that the Ripon Christian Stone Ridge Christian game will be played at Modesto Christian High School. The Pittman Franklin game will be played on Friday night, as opposed to Saturday as it was originally scheduled. And finally, something we've never talked about on the show this year is the national anthem. We talk a lot about food, but we haven't talked a lot about the Star Spangled Banner. You know, a lot of times you get these young singers who seem to be auditioning for, you know, the X Factor or something like that.
They're going for the Grammy. Yeah.
I just want to shout out to Kirsten Bauman from Ripon Christian High School. One of the loveliest renditions of the Star Spangled Banner that I've heard in a long, long time.
No frills?
No frills, quick pace, and just a beautiful voice.
That's great. That's all you want. We become kind of experts on the national
we
anthem,
do,
don't
because,
we?
you know, when you get these 11-minute versions, sometimes,
I know.
you know, you're sitting there and you're biting your lip, but anyway, it was a wonderful rendition.
What was that,
Kirsten Bauman.
I'm trying to remember the name in the Simpsons episode. Was it Bleeding Gums Johnson? And it was 11 minutes as the clock
11 minutes.
That's
right. My goodness.
Yeah, that's right. The solo sax before the Isotopes game.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. My final point. I'm gonna be the old man here, and
each one of us rants like every week.
I know, but this is okay. The topic here is senior night, and we all sit through them, and they're lovely presentation ceremonies, which I had the chance to go through in a couple sports when I was a senior.
And they mean a lot.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But we have senior night for a football game now, and now it seems to include everybody. Now, the seniors, I mean, it's the last time the majority of these kids are going to put on pads, at least in front of the home crowd. They're not going to play football anymore. They want to recognize the kids and their parents. But now schools seem to have, let's include as many people as possible in this. So it may become senior night for the band. Well, last time I checked, and it's fine, but the last time I checked, the band, I mean, the trumpet player wasn't going to turn in his horn after the game. And chances are he's probably got a lifetime.
He will keep playing.
He will keep playing. His lip's not going to split at the end of the night or something. And then it's also senior night for the cheerleaders, which is fine too. There's 3 or 4 cheerleaders and their parents come out. But last I checked, these are the same cheerleaders that are going to cheer for basketball. And at the end of basketball season, they're going to get another senior night. Let's, you know, and some people are going to complain, oh, you sports writers just wanted to go on because you've got deadlines. Well, yeah.
We do, yeah.
Absolutely. And there's just,
that part is true.
It is true, and we're not going to deny that. But to sit through these ceremonies and you see the lineup, well, the people line up for the senior night and make it with 5 minutes left in the JV game. Yeah. And the whole crowd goes down to the end zone to line up down there, and they give them all kinds of flowers. So I guess it's good for the flower industry. But come on, okay, that's my rant. My point's made.
Just curb it a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Just
I could go on. I could go on. Ron?
Yeah, I wanted to agree with Joe on Kenny Smart at Central Catholic. His role on that team is huge.
Oh, he's a weapon.
He's a weapon. He played a major role in their big win over Patterson the other night with those end zone kickoffs, which is major in high school football.
Yeah, he'll be a weapon at Harvard.
And he will go on and do very well at Harvard. My outtake here, Brian, is on the 8 teams in the Stanislaus district who won 0 games or 1 game this year. I want to say something about them that I want to pay a tribute to them for putting on the pads, slogging it out every day in practice, not having much positive reinforcement on Friday night. But make sure to know this, that your rewards will come on later in the things you learned on finishing a tough job, your accountability to yourself, to your teammates, to your coaches, even to your school at the high school level. You can't put a price on those things that you learned. It was not all a lost cause this year, believe me. And it was physically tough. It was mentally tough on you guys. But for all of you who stayed the course and finished it, my hat's off to you.
Well said, Ron.
There you go. There you go. I can't do better than that. That was the old man whining about stuff, and you just kind of wrapped it up.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
You did.
I have a soft spot for teams that lose more than they win, and these teams that are going on to the playoffs, they're wonderful for them. Best of luck to them, but most of these teams, we have about half of them are done now.
Yeah.
And there's a reward for them, but it just doesn't come in the form of winning.
Right. Is that an East Union thing?
I believe it is. I believe that's the root of it all.
He said it.
And he said it. Not me. I did not bring that up.
Okay. Well, on that note, thanks for watching Stanisaus Football Weekly for the first week of the playoffs. For Joe Cortez and Ron Agostini, I'm Brian VanderBeek, and go out and watch some playoff football.